All right, it's 6:31, and we'll go ahead and get the regular EDC meeting underway. Thanks for coming out tonight. We have a full house here. I'll make some comments here in a moment, but we'll start with director comments. Susan?
Good evening, everyone. The only update I have is on the wayfinding signage. I've only got one vendor at this point that submitted any information to us, so I'm going to hold hopefully to the next meeting and have two more so we can have three. But the first one came in fully loaded, and that includes all the fabrication design work, probably 12 to 15 signs, including the gateway sign around 60,000. So, and that includes the work with TxDOT and so forth. So don't have anything to compare it to, so we'll try to get you an update at the next meeting.
Good. Thanks. John?
Well, I'm happy to see so many people here today. That's great. I wish that could be every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
John, welcome on board. And also thanks to the Civic Club for the excellent meal we had this weekend. Thanks. That's all I had today.
Thanks, Thomas. Mark?
Just welcome, John. Glad to have you here.
Same thing. Welcome, John, and welcome all our visitors. We do this every month. Come out anytime.
Yeah, thanks, John, and welcome. You get a crowd your first meeting. I think I had one or two people at my first meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to thank the Civic Club. They gave us a nice plaque for helping sponsor the barbecue cook-off. So we don't really have an office to put it up in, but I wanted to show everybody. So I thought I'd bring it tonight. Thanks for that. Let's see. One thing I wanted to mention was for those that don't attend a lot of EDC meetings, but we adhere to the same format as the City Council. So any comments, there's not necessarily going to be back and forth and Q&A with the line items on the agenda. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you'd like to say something, we do have an unscheduled visitors section. Brett, do you want to do city update?
It really just got one update at this point until further on the agenda. Our legal has been working with our new proposed engineering firm. I think we finally got it worked out. We've got a final master service agreement. We'll be taking to council on December the 5th. And this is for general engineering services, so it's not tied to any specific project. We're not locked into anything financially at this time. It'll be an as-needed basis. We'll be taking that forward, and I'll save my other updates for later in the agenda.
Thanks, Brad. All right, this time, do we have any unscheduled visitors that would like to speak? And just a second, and then do you mind using the microphone? I guess you know the routine. I would like to start off by saying that we're not necessarily assuming a lot of people are here because of the line item about the parks, but we're not necessarily deciding anything here. This is simply for discussion and whether or not to fund any type of project. So just kind of keep that in mind, everybody.
Thank you. Patrick Michalski, 1019 North Shore Drive. In reference to the item on your agenda tonight for the pickleball, I'll be the first to admit I know very little about pickleball. If it's a popular sport, people want to have it here on the island, that's great. I do want to voice my objection if there are plans to put it at Jarboe Bayou. That park was dedicated back in 2006. That was stipulated to be a wildlife refuge and bird sanctuary. So far, we've already put a pavilion, which is great. We got a swimming pool, and we have a maintenance yard down there. Putting any more concrete down there, I think, would be a slap in the face to the very grant that we got and the reason that we bought that property. It's a great park. People enjoy it. I think there are other places on the island that a pickleball court could be put. You've got the lot directly behind the city hall that you could use. It's got pilings in it. I know that just recently they've had a shed put over it, but I think there are other locations. I'm just saying, putting it down at Jarbo Bayou would be a slap in the face to the original intent of getting those wetlands. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Darlene Pettit, 822 Cedar Road. I'm also on the pickleball court, so my thing mainly is the noise, and especially if the wind is blowing, it's going to affect the homes on Birch, Cedar, and Lazy Bend. I live on Cedar. We also know that the grants were used to declare the property wetlands, bird sanctuary, and coastal restoration to make this a park, and were used along with federal money to purchase it. The idea that it has to be considered public, therefore I know the EDC is interested in purchasing the house on Clear Lake Road because that's been discussed before. Well, that property is plenty big enough to add a court there. So I think we need to look at other locations besides Jarbo. I mean, because I'm sure if you put it on Clear Lake Road, all the neighbors around there are not going to want it there either. But you're taking a park that is supposed to be wetlands and a sanctuary, and that's what the federal money and the grant money was used for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, my name is Mike Pettit. I live at 818 Cedar. And so I want to voice my, I guess, concerns about the pickleball court as well. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the pop, 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 pop. I was sitting over at the pool the other day, and some people came in and they sat under the pavilion, and they had a pickleball paddles and balls, and this was just to one another. They weren't trying to go over a net. There was no force. And I'm sitting there talking with two others at a table, and it's pop, 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 pop. I don't want to wake up every morning to pop, 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 pop. And I don't want to hear the associated swearing. So somebody, lobs a ball, and it's not their point, and it's like, oh, dagnabbit, gosh darn it, and that's about as clean as it gets. And then so it goes from there to other types of, swearing words, and I don't want to listen to that. I don't know why we're building this when our own citizens probably won't get the opportunity to use it. So, okay, Johnny and, Martha, let's go down and play a game of pickleball, and you go down there and find your third line, and you're waiting behind people you don't even know who drove in from God knows where. So you don't get the opportunity to play either. There are no bathrooms. When nature calls, they'll be looking for a bathroom, and oh, there's bathrooms. Let's go use these bathrooms. They're locked. Oh, well, gee, then I guess I have the right to just go behind, I don't know, the building, the tree, I don't know. The location is bad. It's going to be on the back side of the pavilion where a lot of people show up in golf carts for jamming on Jarbo. Suddenly they just can't pull around there willy-nilly and sit in their cart and listen to music because you have that court in the way. Furthermore, other people are not going to hear that constant pop, pop, pop. And so we're going to take it on the chin this side of town. We go to sell a house. They're going to show up, and how much you want for this house? It's like, well, this much. And, well, what is that noise? Ah, nothing. Don't worry about it. Pop, pop, pop. Well, gee, imagine, I can't live like this. So, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. And go on down the road. So it's unfair to us, to put us in the trench in terms of reducing property values. I have other points I have to. Could cover, but I'm out of time, so appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bill Shelton, 531 West Shore. I don't play pickleball, but I think the pickleball court will be a great addition to the island. One of the things I really love about living here is it's such an outdoorsy place. Everybody's always outdoors doing things. And I think this would be another reason to get outside and enjoy it. And here again, I don't play pickleball, but I think that the court would be a good idea.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? All right. If not, we'll move on to item number 5, the consent agenda. And I'll just make one comment. I don't know if you noticed the sales tax intake this month, I think was the highest in October in the past 10 years that's listed on here, and I think it was the same for September as well. So that's trending nicely. Is anybody needed to discuss consent agenda items, financials, check registry, or the minutes from last meeting? If not, we'll keep on. Okay. Item number 6, appoint officers to the corporation for positions of president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer for a term of 1 year per the bylaws. We do this every year for the November meeting. As you know, the city council appoints directors, but we appoint our own officers. So currently it's myself as president, Thomas is vice president, secretary is Mark, and we really don't have a treasurer at the moment. It's always been me typically, but once we hired Cheryl, she's basically taken that off of my plate. But is anyone interested in any of those positions, keeping their positions, changing anything?
I think y'all have all done a wonderful job.
Thanks, Ponce. We've never really done it in the past, but if we need to make a motion to appoint, we'll...
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and reappoint our existing officers for the 2024 year.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Does anyone want to be treasurer? Is that something we can just leave vacant, or is it?
It's usually best to fill it.
We can keep it as myself listed, but if someone else would like to volunteer to be treasurer, I don't know. Other than meeting with Cheryl from time to time, especially during the budget workshops.
I love working with numbers, so.
I was actually about to make a motion to appoint.
I was afraid I was going to be asked for some other things, and I was saying, well, let's go for treasurer. So no, I'd be glad to.
Don't worry, Mark loves being the secretary, and he's going to keep doing it.
I'm glad you're back after last month.
But do you want to amend your motion?
Okay. Well, can I amend it since I'm now nominating myself?
Yeah, you can do that.
So go ahead and, I think we got to name them all, right?
Just reappoint the same officers within.
Same officers, and then, for treasurer, go ahead and, refill that position, I'm offering Susan Baker to do that.
Okay, we have a amended motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mike Pond seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Oop. No nays? With authority. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, discussion and possible action involving construction bid and funding of pickleball courts. Brad.
So I did ask that we have this put on the agenda for discussion to kind of give everybody some updates. We are still very much early on in this process in what I call a fact-finding stage. Part of that is reaching out to the original awarders of the grants, find out what stipulations are in place and see if they can even do that. Secondly is the cost and budget we're looking at. You know, is it even anything that's feasible for us, or it's our return on investment? And so we met with one contractor. The thing about that is we needed to determine that if this is gonna go over $50,000 project, we're required to go out for sealed bids. So this would give us an idea that if we want to pursue it on with it or not. I apologize for the delays, but just a little after 4 o'clock, I did get our first bid in today to kind of give us a placeholder to see where we're at. And currently, as discussed, we're looking at about $122,000 for this project, and it's for 2 courts, nets, painted, finishing, grading. So I kind of bring that forward, is this something that we're gonna wanna continue? If so, we'll need to work up that RFP, go out for those sealed bids, in addition to, probably before we get to that point, verifying with the grants and find out what stipulations there. It may come back that we can't even do it, per some of the comments that were made this evening. And that's about all the updates I've got.
Wouldn't we do the feasibility first to see if it's actually possible? I mean, if we are gonna be in jeopardy with anything that's been agreed for the grants?
Well, that's kind of what we've done, is feasibility study already at this point, and before we want to spend any more, because part of that, and I'll qualify, this quote is not a hard quote, because one of the deals requires a $1,700 engineering fee. Before we actually spent that money, I want to ensure that it is something that we can go ahead with, because I don't want to spend $1,700. Yeah, it's small in the grand scheme of things, but didn't want to spend that and come to find out that we were regulated by the grants. So this kind of gives us an idea financially about where we're looking at, because this contractor is an HVAC contractor, so it's supposed to be guaranteed low bid for the comparable product. So we've got a pretty good idea financially where we're at, not down to the penny, but at the same time, I think we need to verify on the grant side.
Maybe for everybody to know, can you say a little bit about how the process will be and the steps involved? Maybe put some minds to ease.
For the bidding?
No, for the bidding, the whole process about when is there going to be a town hall meeting? Is it going to be before it gets to the city council? What the steps are?
That's really kind of the desire between council and EDC to pull something. It's definitely not unheard of, and this was kind of an opportunity here to kind of get a little bit of feedback. I know council members have been getting some feedback via email, so kind of as far as that formality, that would be left up to the 2 groups. Does that answer your question? Okay.
So just to be clear, Brad, we don't have any engineered drawings. We have a site plan that we took and showed to the park committee, and these are some option kind of things. So those plans won't come until you decide this is gonna be a project.
Yes.
So we haven't spent any money.
That's correct.
Chasing down a bid. I wanna make that clear.
And the estimates were based off of, yep.
We're not doing anything, we don't have engineered bids, we're not doing anything unethical, nothing like that. We are merely in the process of gathering information, because EDC has already said, along with Civic Club, they voted on the fact that this could be a viable project. And that's when they had us go do this work, to bring back to them to say, okay, here's your pricing, here's where we're heading now. Did you guys figure out the percentage? I know Georgette's here, but we never decided on how much each one was gonna pay. This came up, it was brought forward, and we're just following through. But there has not been one penny of the city's money spent. Been a lot of work going on up there between he and I and others to try to figure it out. So I know someone mentioned that there was some group of people. I believe Grant was in that group, maybe 2 other people, and I wandered up there myself because I wanted to hear what it sounded like. Because we've heard anything from gunshots to lawsuits to all these other things. When the city council makes this decision, they need to make it based on facts. I'm gonna tell you, that day I was up there, it didn't sound like a gunshot to me. You could barely hear it from the sidewalk at the street.
But you weren't actually playing out of court, and it wasn't a constant pop for 8 hours a day.
So I'm addressing them right at the moment. This is not for us to get into it about. So the lawsuits and stuff that I read about, you're talking about 10 courts and playing pickleball till 11 o'clock at night with lights. This is not what's being proposed in the city. When it gets dark, you're not gonna be able to play. the city needs to make decisions based on facts, not just hearsay, facts. And the fact is, we haven't done anything unethical, and we haven't spent one penny of the city's money to do what we've done so far. I want that to be clear.
All true statements.
Thanks, Mayor. We, as far as the EDC's involvement thus far, it's only been, I guess it was a few meetings ago, but we just discussed, our approval without any type of vote, and, informally saying, yes, this is something we're interested in, a parks improvement project, and, most likely that would involve pickleball courts. And we also expressed our, how we'd be interested in some other playground equipment, and if it was a larger project, and, our financial contribution would be adjusted because of that. So, and also, I think we were discussing more in a much smaller price range too at the time. So this may change things.
Yeah, the price is a little higher than we expected. However, but before we can even get into that, we need to figure out that we can actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
You had done some due diligence, I thought, back during the summer and gone through and found everything, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Myself and Christy checked all online files and box files. The challenge that we've had that there was a number of records that were destroyed in, I believe it was Ike. So a lot of those records were destroyed, and so we were unable to find it. I am actually reaching out to those agencies that awarded the grant to see if they can provide me some information, but we have not been able to discover anything internally.
Yeah, because, wasn't the pool and, pavilion was installed, but they did that, so you wouldn't think it would be too different, but anyway.
Yeah, I think it's clear that there's already been a precedent set, regardless of what it would say. And I don't think there's anything that we found that would preclude it being able to do an additional facility up there.
Any further discussion? Good.
Sir.
I'd just like to reiterate that the EDC's involvement is mainly a funding mechanism. EDC board is not deciding if we're getting pickleball courts or where they'd be located or anything. We're just, a funding mechanism at this point. So, okay, moving on. Item number 8, discussion and possible action regarding CLS EDC bylaw amendment for director requirements. Thomas Holland.
Yeah, when we had the last vacancies or renewals, whatever you want to call them, for directors on the EDC, we had 2 business owners that applied. Current bylaws doesn't allow for that to be, it has to be a resident. Neither one is a resident. Now, it could be a good idea to have a limited number of these business owners on the EDC, and we have asked the help from our city attorney, and according to state law, you can actually have people on there, we can be less restrictive, so to speak, but state law allows for people within 10 miles to be appointed.
If in another county.
If in another county.
Yeah, if in another county.
Or in Galveston County. Right.
And, we are obviously, we can restrict this in many different ways, but we could also just do with the state rules, and then we can the EDC will make a recommendation to City Council, and the City Council will ultimately appoint based on, how much association you have with the city and what you can contribute to at the EDC. So we left the last discussions, and I just wanted to see if we can close it out by either doing it as per state, keeping it as is, or if we need to make any other amendments. So I suggest the discussion.
So I was out of the country for the last meeting, so I didn't get to hear the discussion associated with that, but I would like to understand what was discussed as far as the benefits of doing that. Because it seems to me that would throw in some kind of conflict of interest for them if they were voting members and we were doing something that they could potentially benefit from. So I'm sure they all had a discussion about what were the pros and cons, but.
The discussion, to try to make it simple, was that we were positive to allow maximum of 2 people from business owners to be on the board, but no more than 2 at any given time. And
non-residents.
Yeah,
business
non-residents.
owners. Yeah,
No.
just non-residents of any sort.
And it is to get a bigger pool of people to apply. We don't seem to be inundated with a lot of applications for any committee. So it's to widen the pool.
And it's common to have business owners on economic development corporations. So we actually have.
Well, I mean, Ronnie's a business owner, but he doesn't.
Sure. Well, I mean, non-residents that, in most of the time, that's going to be a business owner. But it could even be a professional that would benefit the board itself that may not have a business. But ultimately, the EDC would make recommendations based off of the applications, and then the city council, has a unilateral decision to appoint whoever they want. So like you said, this was mainly because we had never had that occur before. We're a non-resident, and I don't think a lot of people realized that you had to be a resident. It was in the bylaws. So I'm not sure when they applied that the applicants even knew. And when I started seeing applications, and I was like, well, I don't think that they live in the city. We need to look into this. And then we asked our attorney to look into it, and he wrote a nice opinion here. So, but that's what we discussed. Again, it's just to possibly widen the pool of applicants, and just align us with state law. And we basically voted to move in that direction. I think 4-2 maybe.
We were positive to the change, but we didn't finalize any wording.
It was mentioned also at the last meeting that some of the other cities that are a little bit more toward state law, more expanded, but they also are doing some things like having committees that might meet quarterly or with the business leaders and owners. And I think that's an excellent thing that we need to consider anyway, however we go. And maybe if we don't go this route at this point, at least do that. I think at minimum, having some sort of regular routine, kind of like, we do special meetings for working on budget, having a special meeting once a quarter with some of the business owners. So they're certainly welcome to attend these meetings, just as our residents are. And maybe that's part of the confusion, that they're not residents and they don't think and they don't get the emails. I don't know, but I think we need to make a greater effort.
It's all about information, and I agree. Maybe that's a better way to start. We can start with that and then see where that takes us without changing any of the bylaws.
Yeah.
And we were moving a little bit more quickly last time because we hadn't appointed. The city council hadn't met yet. But now that we have the positions filled, there's a lot less urgency. But I'd like to get this figured out, before the next round of applications and stuff. So.
I'll make a note about that, and then we can also but are we in agreement we should start with like you say, quarterly meetings with business owners, or at least get them to come?
Sorry. I think that's a good start, and then from those meetings we can learn from them how they want to participate. I think that in itself, and of course with our residents here that are already eligible to be on this team, we encourage you to participate. And the application process is easy. We even talked about, how do we want to consider applications in the future. So I think we're going to have to put that in writing as we look at doing this, because if you're going to have people not residents, which we have an ability to know, and they're outside of the community, you're going to have to do something a little bit different on how do you look at those applicants. So I think I would make the motion that we consider developing a plan for a quarterly meeting with our business owners and leaders that are part of who we support.
Yeah, we can at least gauge the interest, especially if that produces a lot of interest. Then we'll know that they may or may not in the future be applicants. Yeah.
That's not exactly on the agenda, though. On the agenda is actually whether you amend the bylaws
Okay, gotcha.
for other directors, do you wanna keep them all within the city? Or do you wanna have some that are outside the city, or not? So, I mean, it's a great idea. I mean, you could put that on the next agenda to go ahead and, add that as a committee, but this one is specifically to whether or not you do or do not amend the bylaws for that purpose of changing the qualification to even be a director.
So that was the first step, right? We would need to amend the articles of incorporation, amend the bylaws.
They would, right, they would be amended at the same time if you chose to open up the pool of applicants. So, if you chose to go that direction, then the next step would be I'd bring back the actual wording for changing the articles and bylaws for you all to pass. And if it passes this committee, then it goes to the city council, and they must bless it as well.
Sure.
But it starts here, they could change it too, but they don't have to, but normally they would come here and see what you all thought about it. But they can change the articles and bylaws if they need to. But, and to make it clear that even if you open up the pool of applicants, does not necessarily mean that the city council will fill it with people who are not residents.
Sure.
I mean, when you think about it logically, most of the people who would wind up being appointed would most likely be residents because they're actual voters, right? So someone that lives outside the city is not, but they can bring a wealth of information, to a committee if there are not residents who are interested in serving. So, if in the past you've had some trouble in terms of getting enough members on the board, you may want to open that up so that someone that does have a business in the city has the ability to be qualified to put in an application to serve. But that's for y'all to decide. It's I don't know whether you want to do that or don't want to do it, but not only is it opening up the possibility of someone serving, but then also council would have to appoint someone that has some kind of connection with the city. I doubt very seriously you're gonna go pick somebody that's just down on Galveston Island for no reason, or someone that's living in, over in Seabrook. It's just not gonna happen realistically.
Right.
But if you do have people that happen to be a resident that's within that confined area, which is either Galveston County or 10 miles in Harris County, because that's the only county that would really touch within 10 miles of this city's borders, that's the limitation. So you can't go and appoint someone in Austin or somewhere else, so.
Sure.
But it does give you options.
Would we have to restrict it to business owners, or could it be?
No, you can only, the qualifications can only be, according to state law, have a nexus with residency. So if they live close to the city, and they may also be a business owner, that's fine if that's what, the council wanted to choose to fill an open position. But, I mean, if I wouldn't specifically put it in your bylaws that way, but you can certainly encourage business owners who are non-residents to apply if you would like to have that business touch.
I just think it'd be a good idea if there was someone that wasn't a business owner but is interested and could contribute.
Correct.
Do you want to say, no, you can't do it because you don't own a business?
Right. So it would just be you would just be removing the resident aspect of it, essentially.
That's fine. I agree with that.
But it sounds to me like it may be better, I was initially for it, but that we table it, keep it as we have it for now, and then at a later meeting, we bring up the issue of quarterly meetings and see where that takes us, and then decide by, September of next year if we're gonna open it up or not.
Sure, and I mean, keep in mind, there could always be an opening before then, too. So.
No, there's.
Well, I mean, someone could.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Someone could leave, or a council could, get mad at you and kick you off the board, or.
Yeah, you never know.
So, that's the only reason why I bring it up is because it'd be nice to have this figured out so we can get the ball rolling, because nothing's gonna happen before our next meeting and then the next council meeting. So.
Keep in mind that you guys have 7 people on your board, right? So if you allow up to 2 people that are non-residents, you still pretty much control that board. No one's gonna come in here and take over that board.
Well, council has ultimate decision too.
We really should be taking your recommendation. You guys should be getting the applications. We don't get them until they're in our packet. And you guys should be meeting and interviewing these people and giving us a recommendation, you know, as your council, so to speak. So, you guys still control that. If you only allow 2 non-residents, you still have 5 that amongst yourself can say, I recommend this one, and you either agree or don't, before you ever bring it to us. And based on your recommendations, we should be listening to you based on your interviews. So you still have control. You're never gonna lose control of that with 2 people. Just to keep that in mind. I know that was the fear in the last meeting is, oh my God, all these outsiders. But, you know, I'm gonna use Alex Scanlon as an example. Let's say Alex Scanlon didn't live here, but he lived in Glen Cove. Would you trade his wealth and knowledge, Thomas?
Nope.
Just because he didn't live here?
Nope.
Hell no, you wouldn't. He's a very smart young man who brought a lot to the table.
Yep.
That's the example. You know, just because they're not residents, don't mean that they can't bring something that really helps our city. You know, that's what you're trying to open it up to.
And another scenario too is if someone simply moved, you know, if there was a director, say you moved to Glen Cove, and you still wanted to serve. I mean, that's another example too. Instead of, you know, having to remove yourself from the board, you could stay on the board. It just opens up more resources. I don't see a negative.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe we overthinking this. Yeah.
And speaking of Scanlon, I think he's the one that kind of started this whole process, because he's the one that recommended the business owner to apply for the EDC, which got this whole thing going in the first place. So we'll blame him for that. So
Part of it also was we were concerned that the business owners that were applying had a vested interest.
they would just recuse themselves from that particular item, should one come up.
That's why I didn't like it restricted business owners.
Well, in that case, then I'll instead of overthinking this, and then we have a lot of stopgaps on this anyway, so I'll just make a motion that we open it up as proposed by city attorney.
I'll second.
This is to change the bylaws to include non-residents.
Do we need to specifically say articles?
Yeah.
It's gonna change the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws, because both of those specifically restrict it to Clear Lake Shores residents only and does not give.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Both the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws, they're 2 different legal documents, and but they both apply to this EDC. And those documents both have to be amended because both of them restrict it to just being a Clear Lake Shores resident, whereas the state law allows a resident of the city, a resident of the county, and a resident of an adjacent county that abuts within 10 miles in that other county. Still all based on residency. But what I would do is, what you're essentially authorizing tonight is for me to bring back the documents, the Articles of Incorporation and bylaws with the correct wording on there, so that then you can approve those documents. If you approve them, then those documents go to council for their approval as well. So, in other words, it's kind of like, you know, you didn't want to get started on putting a pickleball court without clearing the fact that you could put it on that particular land. This was the same thing. If y'all didn't want to approve making this justification, then I would not come back and spend the time on amending the documents that you have no intention of approving. So I wanted to make sure that y'all want to do it.
And charging us for it.
It won't be too bad.
So, you made a motion, there's a second. Did you want to put the stipulation of maximum of 2?
Yes.
Okay. Did you want to amend it? Sorry. I just want to get everything on the...
Well, just to say, just to say on when you're making the motion is to direct the attorney to develop the verbiage to come back to us to incorporate that.
That's correct.
That's the way I wrote it. So.
Yes. And the motion is then to open up as per state law, but maximum of 2 people,
Non-residents, yeah.
so non-residents.
Okay.
Of the city.
That's it.
Correct.
I'm glad you're here tonight, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Pons? Okay. Okay, we have a minute motion and a second. Do we need to discuss any further? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays? None? Unanimous. Okay. All right, everybody. Appreciate it. We will adjourn at 7:12.
Anybody else needed something seconded?
So I noticed our bylaws are not on the website. Is that something that we should do?
Take your power away from there.
You could do it either way. There's no requirement that they have to be on there, but you can.
Because the only place that it showed originally when all this started that it was residents only was just like a one little sentence on our website.
Yeah, but it's almost one sentence in both those documents.
Sure,
too.
but
So,
but